Hare Krishna. We continue reading Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 6, Dhyan Yoga. You're on text 25. Shane shaner uparamed bhutya dhriti grihitaya atma samstam mana kritva na kinchit abhichintayet. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Gradually, step by step, one should become situated in trance by means of intelligence, sustained by full conviction. And thus the mind should be fixed on the self alone and should think of nothing else. So we have been hearing in this chapter how Krishna has been telling Arjuna to perform the Ashtanga Yoga, the meditation process. He said, first you go alone to the forest, you sit, you find a seat, neither too high, not too low. Then you control all your mind, you control your senses. After it's fixed, then the yogi, he comes in samadhi. Some comes in samadhi, he can see the Vishnu Roop in his heart, the Paramatma. He can see in his heart. So he can see that he is the soul, he is soul, and that there is Paramatma in the heart. So he has understood. And that is the perfection of the yogi, of the Ashtanga yogi. Then Krishna is continuing gradually, step by step. One should become situated in trance by means of intelligence sustained by full conviction. And thus the mind should be fixed on the self alone and should think of nothing else. So by proper conviction and intelligence, one should gradually cease sense activities. This is called pratyahar. Pratyahar means we control the senses. How? By proper conviction and intelligence. The senses drive us crazy. You know, the eyes will say, I want to see this. The tongue will say, I want to eat this. So they drive us crazy. But with intelligence and determination, we should control. Now, the mind being controlled by conviction, meditation, and cessation from the senses should be situated in trance or samadhi. So Krishna is telling Arjuna, by this yoga process, you control your senses, you control your mind, you withdraw yourself from this outside world, and you just sit in samadhi. At that time, there is no longer any danger of becoming engaged in the material conception of life. So when the yogi, he's in samadhi, he's fully, now he's understood, he's not the body, he's not attached to any of the sense objects, he's not attached to anything. He's seeing the Lord in samadhi, in trance. He's able to see himself, the soul, and he's able to see the Paramatma, the Vishnu Roop. Then this is the liberated platform. This is the liberated platform. He's never going to come back to the material platform again. In other words, although one is involved with matter, as long as the material body exists, one should not think about sense gratification. One should think of no pleasure aside from the pleasure of the Supreme Self. This state is easily attained by directly practicing Krishna consciousness. So now this stage of samadhi we should come to. But we are trying to understand that is this age of Kali, for us to come to this point of samadhi through the Ashtanga Yoga process is not practical. Why? Because we are not able to perform this Ashtanga Yoga as it should be performed so that it can bring us to samadhi. We city people, Krishna is saying you can't do this yoga in city. You have to go to the forest. That also you have to go alone. And then you have to control your mind and senses and then sit in this dharana. So all that takes thousands of years and we don't have that. So the most practical process in this age of Kali, that's the reason Lord Caitanya said he came, and the Vedas, the scriptures, they advise us for us to reach perfection in this age of Kali. Harer Nam, Harer Nam Eva Kevalam is repeated 3 times. Kalau nasteva, 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 gatir anyatha. There is no other means, no other means, no other means to, because this is the perfection. We have to come to the perfection. And so this can be easily attained by directly practicing Krishna consciousness. By hearing and chanting, begins with hearing and chanting. Yato yato nischalati manas chanchalam astiram tatastato niyam yaitad atmani eva vasham nayet. From wherever the mind wanders due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must certainly withdraw it and bring it back under the control of the sense. The nature of the mind is flickering and unsteady, but a self-realized yogi has to control the mind. The mind should not control him. One who controls the mind and therefore the senses as well is called Goswami or Swami. And one who is controlled by the mind is called Godas or the servant of the senses. So Goswami means one who has control over his mind. He knows how to control his mind. And because he's controlled his mind, the senses are also under his control. The mind is the king of the senses. It's the mind who will tell us, oh, you see this, you'll feel very happy. Oh, you're going to eat this, you'll feel so good. The taste you'll get, it'll be so good. So it's the mind. But Krishna is saying wherever the mind goes, due to its flickering and unsteady nature. So we have to accept that the mind is flickering. And then the mind has an unsteady nature. But what is he saying? Wherever it runs, you bring it back. You bring it back. A Goswami knows the standard of sense happiness. In transcendental sense happiness, the senses are engaged in the service of Rishikesh, or the supreme owner of the senses, Krishna. So a Goswami is one who has controlled his mind and senses. And so a pure devotee of the Lord is automatically a Goswami. Why? Because his mind and senses are always engaged in the service of the master of the senses. One of the names of Krishna is Rishikesh. That's Krishna's name, Rishikesh. Why is his name Rishikesh? Means the supreme owner of the senses. That's the meaning of Rishikesh. So the pure devotee is already a Goswami. Why? Because he's engaging his mind and senses in this in the service of the owner of the senses, Krishna. Serving Krishna with purified senses is called Krishna consciousness. And this is Krishna consciousness. That is the way of bringing the senses under full control. What is more, that is the highest perfection of yoga practice. So we will hear in the last verse of this chapter, Dhyan Yoga, in the last verse, Krishna gives the hint of the Bhakti Yogi. He says the best of the yogis is one who's always thinking of me within himself, is abiding by me, who's accepting me as the Supreme Lord, abiding by me. That's the best yogi. That's my opinion. So Krishna is telling us already who's the best yogi is the one who is engaged in Krishna consciousness. And by Krishna consciousness, one can easily control the mind and senses, which are very difficult to control. It can take us lifetimes and lifetimes of practice to be able to control the mind and senses. It's very difficult, not easy. But Krishna is saying, you just engage your mind and senses in my service. You leave everything to me. This is yoga. And we can see practically, the more we engage our mind and senses in the service of Krishna, practically we can see that the taste for this material world reduces, in that proportion, directly proportional. The more we engage in Krishna's service, the more we are not, to that degree, our attachment to this material world reduces. Are there any comments or anything to add?
No.
So we'll stop here for today. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Shilpa Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for listening and joining in.